Hi everyone and welcome back to LL Sports TV. Hope you're all doing well. Another boxing video today. This video is about the apparent hatred the boxing community appears to harbour towards Devin Haney. I must say, it's hard for me to think of a universally more unpopular fighter than Devin Haney at the current time, and it's hard for me to understand why that is. But we'll try and delve into it into this video. So let's start off by giving you a little bit of information in about Devin Haney. He's 26 years old. He's from Las Vegas, but was brought up in Oakland, California. He started boxing at the age of 7, and he was a pretty good amateur, very good amateur actually. Won numerous amateur titles, represented the USA at several international tournaments. In fact, he finished his amateur career with something like 146 fights, 138 wins, and only 8 losses. So as you can see, very talented kid, very good amateur. Turned professional in 2015. I think he was aged only about 17 when he turned pro. And a lot of his early professional fights took place in Mexico, actually. His dad took him off to Mexico and had a few fights there. He's got a record currently of 32 fights, 31 wins, 15 by KO. And he's got 1 no contest, which is quite a controversial fight against Ryan Garcia. We're going to touch on that in a little bit. Right, so Devin Haney, he's a 2-weight world champion. He's a former undisputed lightweight champion, the youngest ever undisputed champion in the 4-belt era. He did that by defeating Australia's George Kambosos in 2022. He also won the WBC light welterweight championship of the world when he defeated Regis Prograis. So as you can see, Devin Haney so far has had a very successful career. He's made a lot of money, and he was initially quite popular. But over the years, over the last couple of years, he's become very unpopular, like I said. And it's hard for me to name a fighter that currently inspires or seems to attract as much dislike or hate as Devin Haney does at the moment. I mean, everywhere he goes, he seems to get booed by fans. At the recent announcement of one of his fights, he was booed quite loudly in the arena. And he seems to get booed a lot. He seems to get into beefs with other fighters, the likes of Rolly Romero, Tank Davis, Shakur Stevenson, Teofimo Lopez, Ryan Garcia, even fighters that are no longer fighting, people like Gabe Rosado and people like that. So he's got into it with other managers and promoters, Oscar De La Hoya, Eddie Hearn. He's got into it with social media content creators, other YouTube channel guys that have literally, some of them have actually dedicated their channels to hating on Devin Haney. It's unbelievable. And the question I always ask myself is, why all the hate? I mean, I actually quite like Devin Haney. I think he's a very talented fighter. He speaks very well. He's one of those fighters that I gravitate to because he seems to want to fight anyone. He's ambitious, he's confident, he's dedicated, he puts it on the line. But like I said, for some reason, the hatred is palpable. So let's look a little bit closely at some of the reasons I think why the dislike of Devin Haney seems to have grown exponential over the last few years. I mean, the first thing to say is jealousy. Devin Haney's been very successful at a very young age. As I've said, he was the youngest ever undisputed champion in the 4-belt era. And he wasn't he wasn't slow in letting everyone know that. And I think that has attracted a lot of jealousy amongst his peers. He's made a lot of money. Like I said, when you make a lot of money, especially if you flaunt it like Devin tends to do, he's quite flamboyant in his dress. He wears a lot of jewelry. You go on his Insta, you'll see that he's, parading around in nice watches, nice jewelry, driving nice cars. Things like that do tend to get people's backs up. I mean, listen, for me, as long as he's earned it honestly, which in this case he has, I don't have too much of an issue with it. I mean, sometimes a lot of that stuff is a bit over the top, I must admit, but it's not going to sort of inspire me to seriously dislike or hate somebody unless that's all they do. You know what I mean? I don't think that is the case with Devin Haney. Perceived arrogance. I mean, it's like a lot of these things. People will say, oh, he's not as good as he thinks he is. Well, boxing is that type of sport, really. And it's a very macho sport, very alpha male. A lot of the boxers do tend to shout the odds, tell you how good they are. Part of that is just psych and mind games and stuff like that. You know, I mean, they want to appear to be alpha male, ultra confident, not back down from anybody. So, you know, I see where that's going, but it's not. I would have thought again, as long as it's not taken to the extreme, as long as it doesn't become vulgar, I don't have a serious problem with it. Some people have said Devin Haney tries to be too much like his former mentor, Floyd Mayweather, another guy, incidentally, who Devin Haney's fallen out with. Some people have called him a boring fighter. They say that he's got a style where he moves a lot, or AKA running. And I don't think that's a fair criticism at all. I've watched pretty much all of Devin's fights at the top flight. Yes, he does incorporate movement into his boxing, but it's definitely not running. It's boxing and moving. That's what you're supposed to do. Hit and not be hit, or, you know, limit being hit as much as possible. And if that means you have to move away, circle, use angles, I don't have a big problem with it. Not every fighter is going to want to engage and stand toe to toe. And let's face it, some fighters do that because they haven't got the footwork or the boxing ability, so they're forced to stand and trade. So if a fighter can deploy different styles of boxing, I think that's a great look. And I've seen Devin stay in the pocket and trade. I've seen him move around. You know what I mean? You have to make adjustments in the ring, and sometimes you have to fight different styles. I mean, sometimes you might incorporate 2 or 3 different styles in the same fight, depending on the nature of the opponent. I mean, often you see a guy, he will start off by circling the ring, moving backwards, moving in and out. And then later on in the fight, you'll see that same fighter stand and trade. Again, it depends on his tiredness, depends on his opponent. Sometimes you've hit somebody with a good shot and you think, right, you know what I mean? I'm going to stand, trade, get more leverage on my punches. So, you know, to label him a runner and stuff like that, I think is very unfair. Like I said, you know, it is what it is. No chin. Devin Haney's been hurt a few times in his career. I can think of a few. Jorge Linares hurt him. Jojo Diaz hurt him. Vasyl Lomachenko hurt him. But listen, and obviously Ryan Garcia hurt him when they fought. But pretty much all of those times, he's recovered and recovered well. And with the exception of Ryan Garcia, he went on to win all those fights. So I always thought that if a guy shows a bit of vulnerability and gets hurt, then a lot of people will say he's actually quite good to watch. You know what I mean? So I can't, you know, people calling him chinny and stuff like that, you know, I just think, bro, not everyone's got the greatest of chin. Not everyone's got a Rocky Marciano chin or a I was going to say Joe Joyce, but, you know, early Joe Joyce chin, if you like. You know what I mean? There's it is what it is, man. Punch resistance and tolerance to punishment varies with each boxer. It doesn't necessarily compute as to how good you are or how hard you're training. You know what I mean? Some guys just naturally have a bit more robustness to their game than others. I mean, Devin has been hurt on occasion, but I said the majority of the times he's recovered and recovered well and gone on to winning those fights. So if anything, you should be giving him plaudits for that, not hating on him. Like I said, he got dropped 3 times when he fought Ryan Garcia in that controversial fight. But in every time he got dropped, he got up. And a lot of people said that in the rounds where he didn't get dropped or hurt, Devin won those rounds. So he clearly the guy that's got plenty of heart. So I don't see why that should be a big problem for some people. Overbearing dad. Now, Devin, as I said earlier, Devin, his dad plays a close part in his professional career, and that's been the case right from the start. He's been largely a force for good. Sometimes I must admit, he can be a bit overprotective and speak a bit too much. But listen, it's a natural consequence, if you like. His dad is his manager. His trainers, he's been his trainer as well at times. And his dad, you know, likes to talk. He's quite eloquent at times. And he likes to hype up his son. And he also likes to promote fights. He likes being in the limelight, I think it's fair to say. But I don't, again, it's nothing too serious, to be honest. I mean, I don't know, man. I just don't see. The dad gets a lot of hate as well. I mean, listen, the dad has said a few things out of pocket. Yes, of course he has. You know what I mean? But he's definitely not as bad as, say, the likes of Tyson Fury's dad, John Fury. I've never known Devin Haney's dad to go around assaulting people or threatening people. Yes, he's a touch too vocal at times. Sometimes you're thinking, okay, let your son talk a bit more. But like I said, it's nothing for this hatred that they seem to generate. I just don't get it, man. And, you know, dads and fighters are a common theme in boxing. And you've got to remember, by nature of the sport, that relationship is quite close, and the dads can be overprotective. I get it. I just wish more people would. It's said that Devin Haney can act out of character. An example of that is that people in America said he likes to claim Oakland when in fact he was brought up in Henderson, Nevada. He tries to make out like he's a street guy when really he had a decent upbringing or a good upbringing, and went to a so-called middle-class school in a good environment. But I don't know. I don't know that much about it. You know, I think a lot of fighters out there like to do that type of thing. Claim that they're from the streets, claim that they, you know what I mean, from a rough background and did a lot of dirt back in the day. Again, overplayed, really. I don't know what to say. I mean, if he's claiming he's from the hood and he wasn't, okay, fine. It's not the best thing. But there are plenty of fighters out there, man, that talk real wicked. They'll, you know what I mean, allude to coming from the streets and this and that. But my thing is, if you are that much in the streets, then when did you find all the time for training? So even a lot of these guys that come from rough neighborhoods, yes, they come from rough neighborhoods, but were they doing a lot of that stuff that they claim to do or the people around them are doing? So again, I don't take that seriously. In October 2019, Devin Haney was elevated to WBC lightweight champion after Vasyl Lomachenko was made the franchise champion. And that led to a lot of people calling him the email champion. And he got a lot of stick for that. Now, listen, I'm not in favor of sanctioning bodies awarding belts in that way. Obviously, you want to see the fighters fight for the belts in the ring. That's what they're supposed to do. But in this case, there is a mitigating circumstance that Devin had been calling out Vasyl Lomachenko for quite a long time around about that time. And he wasn't getting the fight for whatever reasons. I'm not claiming that Lomachenko was ducking Devin. But then WBC stepped in and elevated Lomachenko to the franchise champion. And then they awarded Devin Haney the belt. So can you really blame him for that? If they award him the belt, of course he's going to take it. You know what I mean? Because he can then parlay that into title defenses, more money, and hopefully unification fights in the future. So again, I don't see why would I hate. Accusations of being a fake Muslim. Devin Haney, he became a practicing Muslim in the early 2020s, but some people have claimed he's a fake Muslim. Now listen, again, we're not with the guy day in, day out. He claims Muslim. It seems genuine and authentic to me. I don't see what the fuss is. I think there was an incident for one of his fights where people had said that he wasn't fasting, but Devin claims that he was given permission to miss the fast on that particular occasion. So again, I don't know. Is it enough for all the hatred and stuff that he gets? I don't think so. I don't think Devin Haney's given enough credit for his wins in winning the title. He unified the belts by going over to Australia twice and defeating George Kambosos. George Kambosos at the time was undefeated, and he'd beaten Teofimo Lopez in a massive upset. And Devin Haney had to go all the way to Australia. He had to take the low end of the purse. And what's significant about that is that a lot of these American guys don't like to fight outside of America. And if they do, then the terms have got to be right. And they're not going to accept the low end of the purse. Devin Haney was prepared to do that. He went out there, he did that. He defeated George Kambosos, took the belts. And then it would appear that a lot of the Americans started rubbishing the achievement and saying, George Kambosos is not that good. But listen, someone had to beat him. And a lot of those same guys that were criticizing Devin for those wins against Kambosos were the same guys that were turning down offers and not stepping up. So again, I think that's out of pocket. In 2020, now this is something that Devin Haney did that did get a lot of criticism, and I can see more whereby people, you know what I mean, this type of thing will upset people. So, right, let me tell you what happened. So in 2020, Devin Haney made comments that were considered to be racist when he said in an interview concerning a fight with Vasyl Lomachenko I think his exact quote is, "I will never lose to a white boy." Devin Haney said it was made in humour, which I do believe him actually, and I'll explain why. But a lot of people took offence to the comment, quite rightly, and it would appear that some people, both inside and outside the sport, are not prepared to let him forget it or forgive him. So basically, that term, "I'll never lose to a white boy," is a term that's been used before. You may remember Bernard Hopkins used that term when he was, before he fought Joe Calzaghe and lost, by the way. And it's a term that some Black Americans use in jest, they say. It's like a hood term, so to speak. And I think Devin Haney got carried away in a moment, thought he was being funny, and let his guard down, made that comment. He did apologize for the comment, and he has apologized on more than one occasion. He says he's not racist, and I believe him. If you look at his circle of friends, he does have quite a mixed circle of friends. And I've never heard of any other comments or actions that would suggest that Devin Haney is racist. He made the comment, it was ill-advised, it was unfortunate, he apologized for it. It would appear, like I said, that some people just will not let him forget that. And indeed, when he ended up fighting Vasyl Lomachenko in May 2023, I think it was, Devin Haney defended his lightweight belt against Vasyl Lomachenko. It was a controversial fight. Devin Haney won a very close decision. Many thought that Lomachenko won. Many said it was a robbery, which it clearly wasn't. I mean, it was a very close fight. I gave it to Haney by about a round or so. Yeah, I thought he won the fight. I didn't see what all the big fuss was about. But I understand it was a close fight, but I don't think it was a robbery. Now, the reason why I'm saying that is because if you take the comments that he made previously, then on top of that, they go and fight, and then, you know, it's a very close decision. Devin Haney won. You can imagine there would have been a lot of people going into that fight that wanted Devin Haney to lose. The fact that he's won and won controversially, then those people that already didn't like Devin Haney, you could just imagine how upset they would have been afterwards. And I think a lot of the hatred for him stems from that fight from Lomachenko and, of course, the comments that he made prior. Now, this one's interesting. The fight with Ryan Garcia that he had, 2024, I think it was. So he had the fight with Ryan Garcia. He was expected to win the fight, by the way. Ryan Garcia, prior to that fight, was engaging in a whole load of antics. He ended up not making the weight. But during the fight, Ryan Garcia surprised a lot of people, including myself, fought very well, dropped Devin Haney 3 times, and initially won the fight. However, after the fight, later on, Ryan Garcia failed a drugs test, and there was a big furore about it. And it was later, the decision was reversed to a no contest. Ryan Garcia pleaded his innocence vehemently. So there was a big furore about the fight. A lot of people accused Devin Haney of sour grapes. Devin Haney then announced that he was going to sue Ryan Garcia and Golden Boy Promotions. He alleged battery, fraud, breach of contract. And like I said, it caused a big fuss, a big stink, and it's never really been forgotten. Devin Haney contends he suffered physical injuries, reputational harm, and emotional distress due to Ryan Garcia's actions, which he said was the actions of a cheat. And as at the time of this video, that case is still ongoing, you know what I mean? So I don't know exactly what's going to happen from that. But I think I've said on a previous video that I did that I actually think that what Devin Haney did in suing Ryan Garcia is the right thing to do. I wish more fighters would do that. But it would appear that many in the boxing game don't align with that theory. They think that Devin Haney's being soft, he should settle it in the ring. And yeah, that's what a lot of people think, which is somewhat surprising me. I mean, PEDs in boxing, performance enhancing drugs in boxing, is a massive problem. So you would have thought that if a high profile fight's happened and a guy has been caught cheating and his opponent decides to sue him, you would have thought that a lot of people in the boxing community would have rallied around Devin Haney for that and said, yeah, good on you. Let's hope that you win. And that becomes a test case going forward. But it would appear that it's the opposite. A lot of people have accused Devin Haney of being soft, of crying and bitching and moaning, and that he should settle it in the ring, which is somewhat surprising to me. Like I said, I thought he would have received a lot more support than he has done. And it would appear most people are not aligned with what he's doing. So there you go. I mean, the hatred of Devin Haney, in my opinion, appears to be disproportionate, appears to be unfair in a lot of the cases. I mean, if you want to talk about fighters that deserving of dislike, I could tell you quite a few more that were far more deserving than Devin Haney. I mean, I could roll them off my tongue. Jake Paul, Sergey Kovalev, Billy Joe Saunders, Tyson Fury, Teofimo Lopez, Ryan Garcia, Conor Benn. You know what I mean? So those guys, I personally believe, have done way more to, you know, be deserving of dislike than Devin Haney. I'm not saying that people should automatically dislike them, but I think you can see where I'm going with this. And I just think that the hatred is unfair and unwarranted. I think they're far more deserving candidates of dislike. And yeah, that's my opinion. But what do you guys think? I mean, listen, these things are subjective. I'm not trying to force you to like Devin Haney. I'm just giving you my opinion. But let me know in the comments what you think. I think it's quite an interesting subject. I'll be interested to see what you guys say. And let me know if there are other fighters, maybe there's some of the ones I haven't named, but other fighters out there that you think are far more deserving of some of the dislike and enmity that Devin Haney seems to attract. But anyway, that's all from me. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll catch you on the next one. I'm out.